All right, everybody, welcome back here to the finale of the Metallica album review series, at least for now, until, of course, 72 Seasons comes out later next month. And then we rank all these things again and see where that places, right? And like I said before, that things can change. Even some of these spots could end up moving around within a month's time because it is really tough here to rank these things, and that's really what the fun of it is here. Is deciding which ones we like better. And we've got 12 releases here, of course, one of those being a cover album and one of those being an EP, but I factor those in because hey, they're noteworthy enough. It's all new material. The cover album is of course Garage Inc. that comes with Garage Days Revisited EP on there, but I get it if you don't want to count that for your ranking, but for mine, I think it stands well enough on its own that I'm going to go and count it on in here. But anyways, guys, yeah, it's time to rank these Metallica albums. And of course, stay tuned because we'll announce the next album we'll be reviewing, just kind of a one and done so far, because it is kind of a newer band, right? But you'll see what that is at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, guys, let's just kick this thing off. Right, number 12, my least favorite Metallica album of all time, Reload. This thing is just not, it's not on par with any of their stuff. I think this is a fair amount behind even the one I have ranked right above it, because this came out in 1997. This was all leftover from Load, and which we'll see where that ranks, right? But it seemed maybe these just should have stayed, as bonus tracks or something later on for something instead of a whole album. Because man, I don't like the song Fuel. It's just kind of too corny or something for me. I don't know. I've never really liked it. The Memory Remains is kind of cool until you get that, that old lady singer starting to do her weird, like Crazy Frog sounding voice. The Unforgiven 2 is pretty cool. Not great or anything. Better Than You's alright. Carpe Diem Baby is probably one of the better ones off here. Same with Where the Wild Things Are, Bad Seed, and Fixer. Some of these others, like Attitudes, just like, whatever. Same with Slither, Devil's Dance, whatever. Like, it's just kind of bland. It feels really uninspired to me, which maybe they were just trying to so hard because Load was going to be a double album, and so maybe they were like rushing these ones out, just really trying to pump them out to get a double album. But of course, they didn't end up happening. We instead just got Reload here, and I don't like this album. It's not even like I like it a little bit. I just don't like it. It's not. It doesn't keep me focused in on it because there's just tracks that are just constant filler that don't really do a whole lot for me. Like I'm not going to be pissed off if I hear a song like, Prince Charming or Slither or something like that. It's just like they're so forgettable, right? They just don't really stand tall at all on this album. Even the ones that do, Where the Wild Things Are, Fixer, and all that, they're still not even anywhere near close to my favorite Metallica songs. We're ranked pretty low. So the few redeeming tracks that are on here are not enough to put it up any other spot for me. So number 12, definitely Reload. Do not like it. Tried it again whenever we were reviewing these things, and I just, man, could not get into it. Then number 11, which I do like this right here, Garage Inc. Speaking of the devil here, the cover album, which of course is 2 discs, comes with new recordings from 1998 when this came out, and then the disc 2 has like the Garage Days Revisited, Garage Days Revisited, and Motor Headache, tribute show. So there's like a lot of material here, which, and I'm not the biggest fan of cover albums to begin with. I like cover songs, especially like if a band maybe sprinkles 1 or 2 in there, right? But I'm not to say that I hate cover albums by any means, because this is one of the better ones of all time, right? It's got a lot of diversity here, a lot of just a good selection of stuff, and I could have a blast listening to this thing, all the way through. It's I just would say, I'm gonna take their studio material, over it. But it's still this is one of the best cover albums of all time, I think. And there are still some other cover albums I do like out there, like Queensryche's one of them. I did review Ozzy's on here, Undercover. I cannot stand that one. But overall, when it just boils down to it, I prefer studio material and would rather just a band sprinkle these cover tracks like one per album or something, or maybe as like B-sides to their singles, or stuff like that, instead of just doing a whole freaking album of them. But with that being said, I mean, some of the best stuff off here, I mean, you got the Sabracadabra cover, Black Sabbath, which also incorporates gosh, drawing a blank, I almost said Planet Caravan, right? A National Acrobat within its cover. So I thought that was a really cool. Their Turn the Page cover is freaking great. Really cool. Die Die, My Darling. Merciful Fate, which is like a, big kind of amalgamation of a lot of classic Merciful Fate songs. Whiskey in the Jar, super cool cover. Their cover of Tuesday's Gone is just freaking sick. Another really cool one. I love, let's see here. Am I Evil? The Diamond Head cover there. Love their cover of Budgie's Bread Fan. Really cool. Stone Cold Crazy. Their cover of that Queen classic. Overkill. Motorhead cover. I mean, there's great stuff. There's a little something for everybody all over this thing. So that's what makes this such an awesome and iconic cover album. And in my opinion, one of the best cover albums out there. So number 11, Garage Inc. Then we're going to go with number 10, the EP here, Beyond Magnetic. And man, for 4 tracks, Hate Train, Just a Bullet Away, Hell and Back, and Rebel of Babylon, all freaking sick. Amazing, amazing tracks here that were leftovers of, Death Magnetic. But, man, yeah, they could have tacked these things on and it wouldn't hurt it at all, unlike the situation with Reload and Load. Because, these tracks, especially Just a Bullet Away, dark lyrical themes, just like Death Magnetic, and just an incredible, incredible song. Same with Rebel of Babylon. Those are probably my 2. If I had to pick 2 of the 4 as my favorites, it would be those 2 for sure. This little EP is it's quite the hidden gem. Me and some of you guys in the comments were talking about how, a lot of Metallica fans, they don't even know this thing exists, right? Hell, I went years and years without knowing it was a thing. Until I'm like, what the hell? I was just on their Wikipedia page for whatever reason. And was like, what? They had an EP? What, Beyond Magnetic? Is it like a live album or something? Click on it, bam, EP. And all 4 studio tracks, new material. So, absolutely love this EP. A very cool, quick, to the point EP with just some killer tunes that were left off the Death Magnetic album. So you can't go wrong here. I would just put it down here because, for one, these tracks don't really, as great as they are, all these ones above it, I prefer even the best track off here, these 4 tracks can't quite hold a candle to the bigger albums that have a lot more material and, quite frankly, just better songs overall, right? But no issues with this EP. If you guys saw my review of this thing, you would know I really, really dig this. And it had been a minute since I had listened to this before that review. So, and it was really fun revisiting this because, man, just love it. And I was jamming to this thing for freaking weeks, man. Love it, love it, love it. A great companion release to Death Magnetic. So there's number 10. Number 9, we're going to go with the most recently reviewed one and the most recent album to date, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Big double album. Man, oh man, love it. I will say I like the album more than whenever I first heard it. Right, more than the first few times I've heard it. I've liked it more than ever. But I do still stand by the second side of this double here, not quite living up to the standards that the first side set, even though there are some great ones off this second side. But, the first track, you got the title track, Hardwired. Come on, man. Badass, heavy tune. Atlas Rise, another really, really cool one with just some great time changes. Now That We're Dead, just freaking love it. Moth into a Flame, one of my favorites. I love the groove with that one, like the verses, and just it's classic. Dream No More, probably the best off here. Kind of a sequel in a way to Call of Cthulhu off Ride the Lightning. Halo and Fire is another great one. So that whole first side is just stacked. Then you get into some that I'm not really, Man Unkind, I'm not the biggest fan of. Same with Am I Savage, Confusion. Well, no, Confusion is pretty damn cool. Here Comes Revenge is like, okay. Spit Out the Bone, the closing track is freaking incredible. Love that one. I think it was a solid track that, to close it. It was not like a big epic or anything, but just in a weird way, it kind of ends with like a hopeful sound, of like they're going to continue or something, Murder One has one of the best freaking solos on the album. So, not that those tracks on that second side are bad, because they're not. I think they could have left them off, right? Maybe put those on maybe they could have kept this as like a single album instead of a double. I mean, I don't think it's boring to listen through those tracks. They're just definitely filler, because they don't, or maybe what it boils down to, they just needed to pace this thing better, right? Maybe swap some places with some of these on this first side, because to kind of pace this thing out more, put maybe Man Unkind in between Hardwired and Atlas Rise, right? Maybe Here Comes Revenge in between Moth into a Flame and Dream No More, just to kind of pace them out, because it's like they blew their whole load right on that first album. Because, on that first side, because it was just freaking stacked. But, again, not bad songs on that side. Just great, great album overall. And like I said, I've enjoyed this more than I ever have. And I've always liked the album. But it definitely, I don't think it's necessarily ranked up from where I would have maybe even put it like a couple years ago, though, even though I do enjoy it more than ever. But anyways, yep, that is their most recent one. Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Number 8. This is where we get controversial, because I know, a lot of people will die on a hill of this being their best one. And, that's the fun thing, though, guys. Our opinions are all different and everything. That's what makes it, entertaining to look at each other's lists and everything. But I'm going to go with this one being Kill 'Em All, their first album. That is number 8 here. And, I totally get people, standing by this as their favorite. The first is the best to a lot of people. And I've praised this thing to death, especially on my review, because this is another one I hadn't heard in quite some time. And it's another case of I love this album more than I ever really have. You get that classic opener of Hit the Lights. You get the Four Horsemen. Come on. And more than I think about it, I don't think Hit the Lights is the opener. I feel like this track listing on the back is inaccurate to the actual record. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, no, never mind. That's correct. For some reason, I was thinking Seek and Destroy was the opener. But, Hit the Lights. Absolutely incredible opener. The Four Horsemen is one of my favorites off here. Love it, love it, love it. You've got Motor Breath, man. That's a heavy one. Jump in the Fire, very thrashy as all hell. Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, really cool, first instrumental for the guys. Whiplash, who doesn't know that one, right? Classic Metallica, classic thrash metal. Phantom Lord is quite the hidden gem. That's one of my favorites off here. I love Seek and Destroy. All-time classic, for sure. Love that iconic riff. There's not a bad song on here at all. You got the original lineup, Dave Mustaine did a lot of the writing on here, as, before they, with that whole situation, he got kicked out before the album was released. They re-recorded his parts or whatever, with Kirk Hammett on lead guitar, doing his lead solos, rhythms, just whatever they needed him to do that, to get Dave out of the picture, at that time. But yeah, this album's fantastic. I totally get it, because, and it's not the, so some people may have, more sentimental value. This album may hold more sentimentally to them, because to themselves, because maybe they were like, hey, that's the first one I heard or whatever. But I mean, I had heard a good 3 or 4 albums before I ever did hear this one. And whenever I did hear this one for the first time, I didn't feel like, oh, I'm going backwards. Like, this doesn't sound, the crappy, thrashy and just garage sounding production. That helps this for sure. I mean, this is a classic thrash metal album, just period. And one of the most influential albums of all time, for sure. To me, I find that some of these other albums are just stronger as a whole more. And I come back to those more. But obviously, I love Kill 'Em All. And I mean, even just the album cover, they're just very, very classic and iconic 80s metal as a whole. Not even just thrash, just 80s metal all around. So yeah, Kill 'Em All. I get if that's up in some of your guys' top 3, even your number 1. But for me, it's down here number 8. Again, I feel free to disagree with me down there in the comments. That's how it goes. That's the beauty of it. We all rank these things differently. So then we go with number 7. And I'm going to go with the Black Album. And this one, I almost swapped this one with Kill 'Em All. I kind of go back and forth between those two. I know it's not just a Black Album, of course. If you guys know, there's the little snake on there. And especially, it's kind of hard to see in the sleeve, right? Really hard to see on camera, period. But, I'm trying to get a good, there it is. You can kind of see it there. That little snake there. But this album, big double one, does it have some of their biggest hits? Yeah. Like Enter Sandman, don't really need to hear it again, right? Sad But True, great song, but it definitely gets overplayed. Holier Than Thou is sick, though, man. Come on. Holier Than Thou is sick. Then we've got The Unforgiven. That one's probably a little overplayed, but I really have always loved that one, though. Really, really cool song. Wherever I May Roam, Don't Tread on Me, Through the Never has become one of my favorites. That it definitely has. Such a gem off here. Nothing Else Matters. I could do without. Probably the corniest ballad they've ever done, right? Wolf and Man's really sick. The God That Failed, man, that riff on that one is just sick. One of my favorite riffs on the album. My Friend of Misery might just be my favorite off here. Love that bass intro from Newstead. Then The Struggle Within ends it. I mean, action-packed album, beautifully produced. Quite possibly their best produced album as far as the production side goes. But I would put it above Kill 'Em All because, I mean, some of the songs on here I just think I like better than even my favorite song off Kill 'Em All. Like I said, they Through the Never, The God That Failed, My Friend of Misery, Of Wolf and Man, Wherever I May Roam. I mean, those are just all-time classic tracks for me. And some gems in their discography. A lot of times people just jump to, Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Unforgiven, Nothing Else Matters, right? And then they're like, if you either love those, you're going to rank this thing quite a bit higher, or you're kind of tired of those, kind of burn out on them, you're going to automatically want to just pitch it down near the bottom. But here it kind of lies in the middle for me because I do really, really love the production on here and love a good majority of the tracks here. I think they're absolutely incredible hidden gems that are overlooked on this album simply because of the scale of those massive hits. But the Black Album, freaking great stuff, man. Just straight up. Can't go wrong popping this big double album on. Not a dull moment, even for like the tracks I don't really care too much for, like Enter Sandman and Nothing Else Matters, right? Still not terrible songs or by any means. I'm just kind of tired of them. But yeah, there is number 7. Number 6. This is going to throw some people off, but hey, it is what it is. But number 6 for me is Saint Anger. And this is not a joke. I'm not trying to just be different, by putting this here, but I kind of freaking love this album, I know it's crazy. The production is trash, right? The drum sound's kind of trashy with them tin pan sounding drums. But weirdly enough, it kind of fits just to feel this album. I used to hate this thing. I used to be on board with all the haters of this album. I did. But man, there's something about it, you know. It is just such an angry album. Just a document of anger right here. Of the band's just disdain for each other. And when you kind of take that into context and just really... And I know there's not guitar solos in the album, which is kind of a bummer, right? On this album. But in a weird way, it's just like the length of these tracks and some of the repetition on it kind of helps just drive in the points they're making here. I mean, I love Frantic. Love that song. And, you know, I love the lifestyle, determines my death style. Just really cool lyrics. Saint Anger. Always have loved that song, even whenever I didn't like this album. Some Kind of Monster is freaking great. Come on. That's such a killer one. Shoot Me Again. That's a solid one. Sweet Amber. The Unnamed Feeling. That one has definitely become my favorite off here. The time changes on it are really cool. Just the whole evolution of that song and the kind of the softer vocal chorus, but then they repeat it later on down the line, you know, heavier. Then All Within My Hands, man. Invisible Kid's probably one of my least favorites off here. Same with My World. But, you know, they're not bad songs. I know this is shocking again, guys, but I genuinely have grown to love this album. It went from me absolutely hating it a few years ago to then me kind of appreciating it for what it is. Like, oh, it's good. To where I'm like, man, I love this thing. You know, it's one of the craziest, you know, evolutions and taste for me ever. Like, I never thought I would go from hating something to kind of liking it to all out loving it. Quite like I have with this album, my relationship with this album. But that's how it's gone for me. And sometimes it just takes, you know, several listens to finally let an album sink into you, and then you get it. And like I said, I know the issues that people have with it. I hear them because I was there with them. I was at one point thinking those were issues, but now the kind of tin pan, just, you know, junkyard sounding drums, it kind of just fits this thing, right? As crazy as it sounds. And same with just the production. I think this is a very overhated album for sure. It's almost a meme at this point. You know, people are just like, oh, worst album of all time, Saint Anger. When it's like, man, I've heard quite a bit worse, but really way worse by other bands before. So, and this thing, again, I don't even hate it or dislike it or even just like it. Love Saint Anger. So you heard it here. I rank that at number 6. I stand by it. I stand by it. All right. So now we've got number 5. I'm going to go with Ride the Lightning. Man, this top 5 here got tough, right? Because this used to be at one point my favorite. This was probably my first Metallica album I'd ever heard, all the way through in high school. And man, I mean, I'd heard, of course, Metallica songs and all that stuff before, right? But when I started really, you know, getting into albums and listening to them all the way through, this was one of the first. This was the first Metallica one, and I love this album. It's incredible. I love the production on it. Quite a big jump in production from their first release, Kill 'Em All. You just, man, even just the material on here is just, it shows a maturity for the band. You know, you get Fight Fire with Fire, just a freaking classic. The title track, Ride the Lightning, another great one. For Whom the Bell Tolls, great song. And my little burnout on it, yeah, honestly. I mean, which I know I like in my review, I said I've never disliked the song or get to a point where I never need to hear it again, because I stand by that, because I do think it's a great song. But like, I work in a haunted house during the fall and during October, and that song For Whom the Bell Tolls plays like a lot in there. There's like a playlist they put on in there, right? And it comes on and on, right? So definitely, you know, around that time, I'm real tired of the damn song. So, and I have to go a long time without hearing it. Fade to Black is an epic, beautiful tune. One of my favorite Metallica songs of all time. Love it. Very dark, very, very dark song. Trapped Under Ice, freaking all-out classic, underrated gem off here. Escape, I've heard get a lot of hate for people, but I've always really liked it. Thought it was kind of a fun, hooky song. Creeping Death, man, another one of my favorites off here. This Creeping Death in particular, that one also plays in the haunted house quite a bit, right? But for this one, I don't get as burnt out on as I do For Whom the Bell Tolls. Even though, again, both incredible songs, and I'll never, I don't think I'll ever truly be like, I don't need to hear those again. I hate them, because I understand how great they are and everything, and I do love them. Just sometimes I got to take a break from those. Then we get the Call of Cthulhu, the instrumental that cracks in almost 9 minutes. Epic. Incredible. So just fantastic stuff all the way through. I have a lot of, attachment to this album for it being my first Metallica album I heard all the way through. But I definitely, there's just some I prefer over it, as hard as it is to say. But I mean, there's really, even my comments on For Whom the Bell Tolls and Creeping Death, me kind of getting burnt out on them sometimes. That's not a slight at this album. That at all. It just, I don't have a bad thing to say about it. Absolutely incredible, classic, iconic metal album right here. Then we go with number 4. This one's going to shock people again. But we're going with Load. Just like St. Anger shocked people, I freaking love Load, and I've always actually loved this one. I love how different it is. I love, the different kind of style on a lot of these songs here. And I've just never had a problem with this album at all. Ain't My Bitch is a cool opener, 2x4. Kind of has like a southern rock, kind of bluesy feel on this album a lot, especially with like 2x4. The House That Jack Built's one of my favorite Metallica songs. Straight up, love it. Until It Sleeps is a really cool one. Love the production on this album is also just killer. King Nothing, man, that's a badass one. Hero of the Day is one of my least favorites for sure. Bleeding Me, come on, man. Even haters of Load a lot of times will say, hey, Bleeding Me is freaking sick. Because that is a freaking epic, amazing song. I love Wasting My Hate. That's always been a cool kind of, another one that has that kind of southern rock, down to earth feel there. Mama Said, pretty much a country song, right? But I don't even like country music. Like I said, I just really like that song. Just kind of touching from James, But I've always dug that song. Ronnie, really, really cool one. Love that riff. They got a twangy riff. It's got The Outlaw Torn, the best freaking tune off here. Come on. That epic and that solo at the end, especially, man, fantastic album. I know a lot of people are going to probably rank this one low or be like, how could you put it over Ride the Lightning, blah, blah, but it's just, that's just the way I truly feel about it. I'm not going to pretend or shift my list depending on how I think others would feel about it, right? That's no fun. You got to be honest with yourself and with everybody else about what you think about these things. And I honestly put this right up here in my top 4. Just amazing album to me. And I know I saw some of you guys come out in the comments on this one and be like, hey, I love that album too. And I was like, cool. Not the only one out there. Because it doesn't get and over the years, I've seen it not get as much hate as maybe it used to. People saying back then apparently were like, oh, they sold out, blah, blah, blah. Really, when you think about it, if they sold out, they would just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Or just make like, I don't know, crappy, just like straight up, like boring pop, straight to the point, like 3-chord songs, right? But they didn't do that here at all. You have like some complex stuff with the Outlaw Torn, Bleeding Me, and just some heavy freaking hitters. They wanted to try to do something different, and I applaud them for it because I think it absolutely worked on Load. One of my favorite freaking Metallica albums. Straight up, right here. Then we're going to go with number 3. We're going with Death Magnetic. Man, this album is just, they went back to their roots big time on this one. There was a 5-year gap in between St. Anger and this one. And this is like I said in the review, this is pretty much the true sequel to Injustice for All. Like what people would have expected the sequel to Injustice for All to sound like. You got your epic length tunes that have a lot of progressive elements to them. I've heard, some of y'all were talking about kind of the production not being all that great on it. I personally don't really have an issue with it. Is it their best produced album? Not by a long shot, but I don't really think it's a badly produced album by any means. But you got That Was Just Your Life, just a great opener. The End of the Line is one of my favorite freaking riffs off there. Broken Beat and Scarred, man, that one is freaking one of my favorites. The Day That Never Comes is a really cool kind of a slower one, kind of clean, but it's got its heavy moments big time. All Nightmare Long. Try not to headbang to that one, man. Oh, absolutely love that one. One of my favorites. Same with Cyanide. Dude, that one, those first like freaking six right there are just top tier. The Unforgiven 3 is quite an emotional, a really cool piano intro and just a very powerful song. And I like it better than The Unforgiven too, for sure. The Judas Kiss, one that's really grown on me, for sure. The Judas Kiss is Suicide and Redemption. Really, really, really cool instrumental. Was very glad they did an instrumental on this because it works. My Apocalypse, cool freaking closer. Not one of my favorites off here, but cool closer for sure. And to me, there's not a dull moment at all in here. And I think it's beautifully paced. Fantastic album. And I think it's underrated. A lot of people it gets just kind of lost in the middle for a lot of people when they go to ranking these things. But I do stand by it, holding up, even liking it better than Ride the Lightning, in their first album. I think it is fantastic. I love the epic link tunes that they got on here for sure. And just it was just a true return to form. And Death Magnetic has always been one that I've held true. Then I've had a lot of attachment to. This album is just, man, such an underrated gem of an album. And it's just a blast from track one to track whatever's final track. It just, man, I can't stress enough how big of a fan of an album, how big of a fan I am of this album. And I was glad to see some of you guys down there in the comments saying the same. And I'm like, okay, so you guys, there's a little bit of love out there for this thing, which you don't really see a hate for it out there, but you just don't see a lot of love for it either. So I love, meeting somebody or talking with you guys down there who are fans of this thing. Number 2, here we go. Top 2. We're going with number 2, Injustice for All. Man, the first album with Jason Newsted. The band was in a dark place, very tough position after Cliff Burton died, the untimely death and everything. But we got this right here. Props to them for powering through the darkness they were in to make this masterpiece. I said it. I think it's a masterpiece. I know it sometimes is like they get shit for the production, turning the bass all the way down or whatever, right? And yeah, I don't like that happened either. But at the same time, it's like it almost gave this album a very, very unique feel. Like a dryness, but in a good way. That just like the drums sound very militant sounding from Lars on here. And it's just, it gave this album a sound that, it's hard, I've not heard replicated. As far as that, because, most people don't want to turn their bass all the way down. I mean, I played bass as well as guitar and all that. I wouldn't want to be turning my bass down, right? But it definitely is such an interesting sounding album on the production end of things. But just when you talk about the songs, Blackened, one of the best freaking album openers out there, man. The Injustice for All. I mean, that song's almost 10 minutes. Love it. Love it. Eye of the Beholder. Man, that freaking probably the best one off here. That was the first Metallica song I ever heard, and I still freaking love that one. Very, very cool. Very fun to play on guitar, too. The Shortest Straw. Killer. One of the shorter ones on here. Same with Harvester of Sorrow, which might also be my favorite off here. I love that dark riff they got going on there. The cleans that, transitions into heavy, then closes out with that clean riff. The Frayed Ends of Sanity. Man, another sick, sick, sick one there. To Live Is to Die. Beautiful, beautiful. Kind of almost like a sequel to Orion instrumental there that has just some incredible moments in it one of my probably, yeah, I mean, that's my second favorite instrumental they've done. 1,000% right there. I even like that better than Call of Cthulhu, and I love that song. Dyer's Eve, great closer. You just can't go wrong here, man. This is a front to back double album masterpiece, and it's, again, I know the bass thing may bug some people, but at this point, I've even listened to remixes of the album with the bass involved. I guess we're just so used to hearing it like this now. It's like, I'll just take it the original way. It's got such a sound to it. And the genius of these guys really, they really, it showed all over here. I mean, this was their, like, peak, I think, I mean, obviously I love a lot of the other stuff we've talked about, but I think, like, after here was like, okay, they've taken this thrash thing, at least in their minds, as far as they could take it at that time, which is kind of why they, in interviews where I've seen that they were like, yeah, so that's why we kind of changed things up on the Black Album or whatever, because they felt like they just really took this thing as far as they could take it at that time. And I see where they're coming from, because this was on another level, and it still is on another freaking level. Beautiful, epic album. But if you use Process of Elimination, you know what number one is, and it's Master of Friggin' Puppets. This album, to me, is, man, one of the greatest thrash albums of all time. Hands down. You got Cliff Burton's best work on here. All throughout. The production is just golden, man. Love it. You open up with Battery, just the acoustic kind of intro, and then you just start thrashing right off the bat with that one. Master of Puppets, epic sounding track that has all kinds of cool time changes, epic moments in it, an all-time Metallica classic. The Thing That Should Not Be, love the kind of dark nature of that one. Welcome Home Sanitarium is up there with possibly my favorite Metallica songs of all time. Love it. Love it. Talk about a dark tune, man. Very, very dark one, but yet really, really heavy. Disposable Heroes, man, another just sick 8-minute something track. And then Leper Messiah, come on. Orion, up there is one of my favorites of all time as well. That is a beautiful, beautiful tune. That'll damn near bring tears to your eyes if it doesn't. Every once in a while hearing it, because, you just hear, that was Cliff Burton's magnum opus right there, I think. Orion was. It's almost like that song right there was, his final piece that he left us. And what a piece to leave that we can all cherish. He may have, passed early, but we have the albums we have with them, and they're pieces of history. And that song right there is, if I want to show somebody, how good Cliff Burton truly, truly was, you show them Orion, man. Just straight up. Then you close it with Damage Incorporated. Badass classic Metallica tune. I love the whisper, Damage Incorporated. And then it just kicks back in. So, fantastic album. One of my favorite, thrash metal albums of all time. Metal albums of all time. It's just hard to beat it, man. If anything comes close, it is Justice, because you just heard me pumping that thing up. But it's just hard for me to not choose this. This is a piece of freaking treasure right here. This album is, to me, holds a special place in my heart, and it's just so many great memories of this album. Never forget hearing this one, and it still just amazes me how quick these guys, Metallica, they evolve so quick, from Kill 'Em All to kind of, they sound like kids in their garage, which is amazing and everything. But, then they go to Ride the Lightning, into this, and then to Justice, like all in the span of, less than a decade. It's like, damn, they just got on it quick. And this is, I think, the quintessential Metallica album right here. Master of Puppets, favorite one of all time, right here. You heard it here. So yeah, we got them suckers ranked, but again, we will revisit that. Some of that may even change straight up within a month, or however, and whenever I end up reviewing 72 seasons, because that's just how it goes sometimes. I'll be jamming to these things, of course, still, and some of that stuff was kind of, especially the middle, was kind of hard for me to decide where I wanted it So it may end up just, you know, changing up a little bit even then. But we're going to plug in that 72 seasons into that ranking once we review it when it comes out to see where that stacks up in this epic discography that Metallica's got. But with that being said, guys, I'll go ahead and announce the next, you know, one-off album we've got here because, you know, I like to kind of cover a small discography or a one and done in between, you know, these bigger discographies we do. And it's going to be a new band that came out just last year, Skills, Worlds Apart is the album. And it is a band, just solid hard rock, has Billy Sheehan on bass, Brad Gillis of Night Ranger. I think they got the drummer of Night Ranger, and then just some, you know, younger kid from somewhere in Europe whose voice just sounds like it came straight from the 80s. So that I definitely, I'll be reviewing that thing next. And I want to tell you guys all about that and would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that whenever we do review it. But tonight, and until then, I want to hear your guys' rankings of this. I've been very excited to see everyone's rankings down there for all you guys who've followed along with this. It's been a fantastic journey that we are going to pick right back up again in April because we've, you know, what a way to get prepared for the new Metallica album than by reviewing and ranking them all. So, thanks guys so much for following along with this very, very fun ranking and album review series. And stay tuned for next time when we cover Skills, Worlds Apart. And like, subscribe, and again, let's see those rankings and opinions on my list. And, you know, we can share different, you know, differing opinions down there in the comments. That's some of the most fun stuff to do about music. So stay tuned, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks.